Good morning. I'm here with Caitlin to talk about imposter scams. But before that, there was a test from a foreign research company 4 years ago where they tested facial recognition on phones just to see if a photograph of your face would unlock the phone. And they found that about 40% of phones would fall for that. And they retested it now after 4 years to discover that still 40% of phones fall for it. Nobody cares. Nobody's patching it. iPhones do not fall for this. They have a system where they actually scan your face with a laser and get a 3D picture of the shape of your face, which is good and cannot be fooled by a photograph. But a whole lot of other phones are still vulnerable to this. Motorola, Nokia, Samsung, Xiaomi. So they have a list of them there. It's pretty ridiculous, especially now. In other news here, we're moving towards increased use of biometrics instead of passwords. It would really be good to have higher quality biometrics. Anyway, you've got an insightful article about the submersible.
Right. So the Onion says the quiet part out loud again. The for people that are unaware, there was a submarine that went missing, and it became the top news story for a few days. And what's really funny is that it wasn't the only big sea catastrophe in recent news. There was also a boat full of migrants that had a catastrophe as well. That did not get in the news. Now, the reason why this got in the news is because this submersible was going to see the Titanic, and aboard were very rich people. Like there were like four rich people. And so this got a lot of news. And at first I ignored the story because I knew it was fluff. And then I read about the engineering of this stupid thing, and it was hilarious because they cut every corner. It was like Jurassic Park all over again. Um they were using a $30 Logitech joystick for gaming to like control the sub. They were using off the shelf like pipes as ballast. And the front view window was supposed to withstand up to 4,000 meters, but they only got one that was rated to 1,500 or something. I mean, it was terrible engineering. So that I thought was funny that they were loading people into the sub and taking them to the Titanic.
I'm
Uh,
charging like $250,000 for
Uh,
this.
yeah, and the thing costs like a little over 1,000,000 to make, but every time they went down, they charged everyone 250,000. I mean, and there was no regulatory body at all looking over this. I mean, it was hilarious. Anyway, so of course they died. They found the wreckage. It just imploded because all the pressure.
Well,
Uh,
apparently they'd used it many times before, so it wasn't like completely unusable.
no, no. But it was bad. Anyway,
Yeah,
um, but of course the big reason why this got on the news in the first place is because all the passengers were rich.
yeah,
And The Onion has this article saying critics say the submersible should have been tested with poorer passengers first, which
yeah, yeah.
very funny Onion. 2 thumbs up. Very good.
Well, I've this has been coming up when I'm the news segments for my classes. I wonder what the hell is wrong with rich people. I mean, why would you get on this death trap? It was so cold that they warned you would freeze, and there were no chairs, and there was not a proper bathroom. And why would you do this to yourself? It's like these rich people are so bored they have to risk their life for no reason, and to see the Titanic. Who cares about looking at the Titanic?
I knew some autistic kids who loved the Titanic. It's one of those things you see a lot with certain autistic children, that's like trains, computers,
Hmm.
Titanic, like there's, dinosaurs, it's one of those super fascinating topics for whatever reason. And yeah, so I get why people would want to go down to see the Titanic, but yeah, no, this thing was an absolute death trap. There was no regulatory
Yeah.
body.
It
I
would
mean, it
seem
was
to me that if you're paying that high a price, you ought to get like a comfortable, luxurious cabin in a safe thing, like a real submarine, not this piece of junk.
I mean, the problem is making a submarine that goes that deep is a difficult proposition. You can't get one off the shelf by a reputable manufacturer. This was built by the company who the manager apparently was bragging that he's going to be remembered for all the corners he cut. And it's like, oh God. Oh,
I've
yes,
read
he will be.
articles. I've read articles that say the same thing is true of climbing Mount Everest. They say it's horrible, dangerous, and disgusting, and not even fun, and you'd have to be sort of nuts to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, now I got the one I've got this picture as my background. This was the SAT, it's in Scientific American, and I love these mathematical things. So this was the SAT problem that they put on the SAT, and all the offered answers were wrong. All the experts that wrote it could not solve the problem, and like 4 kids out of 100,000 solved it correctly. And I remember I come across this occasionally. So the idea is you have a quarter and you roll another quarter around the edge. And the question is, how many times does it turn around? And the first thought is, well, the circumference of one quarter is equal to the other, so it will make one turn, but that's wrong. And that would be true if you're rolling it along a flat surface on a table of equal length. Since you're rolling it around another quarter, it makes an extra turn due to the rotation around. And apparently the same thing is true of the Earth. If you sit on the Earth and watch the sun, you see 365 and a quarter days in a year. But if you float above it and watch it, you'll see 366 and a quarter days, because one rotation is just from the orbital motion. And so the right answer is the ratio of the two circumferences plus one. But it's quite confusing, not obvious at all. And anyway, I thought it was kind of amazing that the SAT made this mistake, and it was such a disaster, they had to regrade all the SATs after removing this question, which I saw a similar thing happen in a final exam when I was a grad student on physics. They had a question about two beams of light, one that goes through a prism at one angle, one that goes through at another. And out of like 500 students, 4 of them correctly said, I can't answer this question because I have to compensate for the time light is delayed inside the prism. And none of us had thought of that. And there was the same kind of problem came up. There was a question that was in fact unsolvable, and yet they wanted to grade them. And at that time, the professor in charge was just sort of a ditherer, and one of the senior TAs said, oh, we'll just go with your answer. And they did that. I was sort of floored. They went with his wrong answer and graded everybody that said the right answer as incorrect. I was not pleased. But anyway.
No. That is funny, though.
Yeah. It's easy to write what you think is a simple problem. And then, when the students ask questions, you realize you overlooked something.
Yes.
Anyway, you've got something about the hated bird site.
Yeah. So I've been off Twitter for a while. I rarely post anything there. I just noticed my feed has just been getting really, really bad. A lot of hateful comments. And I mean, this is by design, apparently, at this point. And so I'm wondering
free
what
speech. You hate
Yeah.
free speech is what you're saying.
Exactly. I really hate free speech. So I was wondering, when is there going to be consequences? Well, it turns out that Twitter is the most hateful platform, according to recent studies. And Australia is demanding an explanation. So this is the article from Yahoo Finance, written by Brian Kay, talking about that. So as I mentioned, the studies have shown now that um, Twitter is, just the site for hate at this point, more so than Facebook, believe it or not, more so than Instagram.
What about Rumble and the ones that
Uh,
are specifically right wing?
apparently, yeah, no, even just the sheer numbers of people on Twitter.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so now governments are starting to get involved and asking, why is this happening? This isn't good. And that's good because, a good social media site really does require, so a minimum of moderation to keep the hateful comments at bay. And Twitter just refuses to do that because of its leadership. So
Yeah. And it scares away the advertisers. It has. They don't want to be advertising next to posts from the Nazis and stuff.
no.
And I saw another article, the European Union has a new content moderation law that's going to apply to Twitter. And they say Elon Musk says he's going to comply, but he always says that and then doesn't. So we'll see.
Apparently he is going on a war against people who use like words to describe straight people. Like
Yes, he's decided that cisgender is a hate term. And so you can get banned for it. So people are putting articles saying I couldn't say this on Twitter. So this is more and more of the Orwellian right-wing stuff where you bounce all the complaints against you back at the other guy. It's been Trump's specialty. Every time you accuse him of rigging the election, he said, no, you rigged the election, things like that.
Yeah, lock her up. She's doing criminal acts. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's right. And she's not protecting those government secrets. We need to lock her up for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hillary didn't do a good enough job of protecting the government secrets. That's why they wanted to lock her up.
That's right. That's exactly right. And just last week, a former FBI agent just got 4 years for taking like a few documents and storing them in her bathroom.
Yeah, it
And
is.
so
It is serious. You don't. You don't. I mean, yes. I
it's
don't.
not, but when Trump does it, then you're being unfair to Trump, apparently.
I mean, and also they're saying it's just a political witch hunt. But the truth is, Trump is going to get a freaking slap on the wrist, as he should. I think that's a good idea to give him a slap on the wrist. I don't think it's a good idea to jail him at this point, but I mean, he's going to get a slap on the wrist for some very serious crimes. And
Well, that's not so clear. I mean, for example, they could threaten him with jail time and make him settle and agree to withdraw from politics in order to avoid jail time. That's what they did with Spiro Agnew, who was a very similar case.
right.
So, I mean, it you might get him out of politics this way, but we'll see.
I mean, if this was a just pure accident, I mean, I would be on Trump's side. I'd be like, yeah, just leave him alone. But it wasn't a pure accident.
Well, if he had given them back, then there'd be no prosecution at all. That is standard. If you take the stuff by accident and they say give it back and you give it back, they don't press charges.
Yeah, that is standard.
Yeah.
But he messed up pretty bad.
He believes that he's above the law, and he still believes that. And I guess we're going to see.
But his political opponents are not above the law. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the hypocrisy is just outstanding.
it is. Yeah. Well, anyway, NPR has a story by Derek Hare that I thought was pretty amazing, talking about these online scams. Imposter scams are huge. And this is one I hadn't heard of. They call her and say, we are the government and some particular branch of the government. We found a package full of drugs being shipped to your address and we've impounded it. And then they transfer to another person who claims to be a government agency with a real name of real government, of a law enforcement and another, and convince her over 3 hours and multiple people that are imposing as real people that she's in huge legal trouble. And these are real law enforcement people, and somebody somehow they involved her in some illegal activity. And she managed. Then they said, you have to like buy a gift card and send us money. That's when she figured out, wait a minute, this is bogus. But apparently this is quite effective. And they're really getting intricate about it. There's another one I saw where people actually used AI to mimic a relative's voice in a convincing way. So these telephonic scams are getting much more dangerous, and it's a good idea for everybody to know about it because people fall for it. I remember when I bring this up in class, people in my class, their relatives have fallen for online romance scams and stuff. This, I think, is the largest category of scam targeting consumers in America now. So people should remember to be good and suspicious of anybody calling you, telling you any kind of nonsense.
Anytime anyone asks for a gift card.
Yeah, I mean, they almost got me with one about Comcast. It sounded pretty good, but then they said you have to go buy a gift card. And I said, wait a minute, this is a scam. That's when I Googled them and said, hey, you guys are famous. You're on TV. And then he hung up.
Oh, very good. No, yeah, no, I would.
Up till then, it sounded totally plausible. They say Comcast is going to cap your data. They're going to charge extra money. If you prepay for a year now, you can delay that for a year for a low price. That all sounded very plausible.
One thing you can do is you can ask to call them back if they call you.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I could have tried that anyway. As soon as they asked for a gift card, I said, wait a minute, what is this crap? And then I Googled them. They're famous. They say this scam is so good. They fooled Comcast employees with it.
Yeah, so there's that scam, and there's also more high-tech scams coming out where people go on social media. They do spear phishing and types attacks, scam attacks, where they get somebody's information off like social media. They get like, let's say you're on a podcast, they can get like 10 minutes of audio recordings of your voice, send it through an AI, and do a pretend kidnapping when they see that you're on vacation or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's why I know the careful people won't even post when they're on vacation. They don't post any pics until you come back or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And you've got Apple's passkeys.
I do have Apple's passkeys. So Apple looks like they are phasing out passwords, which is going to be, I think, good for a lot of people. For a long time, I've advocated everyone installing a password manager, which most people do not do. Most people still use the same password again and again. Passwords, I mean, would work really well if people used a different password on every different site, but they don't. So there's password reuse. So what happens is one site gets compromised, and sites will still get compromised moving forward. But when they get into one site, like let's say cutecatpics.com, that because you're reusing the passwords, now they have access to your email, they have access to everything. So there's an article on pcmagazine.com by Mike Wolcan talking about how Apple is phasing out passwords to essentially they're calling it a passkey, but really what they want to do is they want to make everything biometric moving forward. So that's just another factor of authorization, which will be interesting. So now people, instead of stealing your passwords, people can steal like your face or your fingerprint, other ways to steal again to your accounts. So that'll be fun.
Well, when I read this, it seemed to me like it's really not going to change much because already my Apple synchronizes the key vault with my other devices, and it offers, if it recognizes my face, it will fill in the password for me on quite a few sites. So
Yes.
it's a gradual transition towards biometrics.
Yeah. I mean, the problem, of course, is that this is all tied to Apple's ecosystem. So what do you do when you have to use a computer that's not Apple and all your passwords and authorization is tied to Apple servers? I mean, this is
Well, there is a standard, right? 502 is the open standard for this. If everybody be 502 compatible, then it would work across these things. So hopefully we'll get there. But the early adopters are going to be these half-baked proprietary solutions that will have to eventually merge and obey the standard, hopefully.
Yep.
But certainly it would be a lot safer to use high-quality biometrics like Apple face recognition instead of all these stupid passwords.
I mean, like I said, I don't know. It's still a single factor. If people find a way to figure out what your face looks like and
Well,
can
they can put a
reconstruct,
pin. They can put a pin on it, and often they do. And with a pin, then it's two-factor.
right? You would have to have everything two-factor because, like, let's say right now you say, yeah, let's have high quality facial recognition. Most devices are going to use low quality components because consumers aren't going to care about lasers scanning your face.
Well, I still think that'd probably be safer than a password, but maybe I'm wrong.
Right. But you post your face on social media all the time. Everyone knows what you look like, Sam. And it's not that hard to use AI to construct a 3D model of your face,
Oh,
3D printed out.
I highly doubt that. That would be very interesting.
Would you like me to do it, Sam?
Sure, because I think even if you did it, you would not fool my Apple unless you stole my phone also, which is the second factor. I think if you got it to have my face on a different phone, that would not do.
Right, right. So so that's something you are and what you want, and that would be two-factor, and that would
Right.
be good.
That's
That'd
what
be
I mean.
good.
I think it
But it
has to be your
yeah,
phone and it has to have your biometrics. That's already officially two-factor.
yes.
The
Okay,
only
that
weakness
would work.
is if they get malware on your phone, then that would do it.
Yeah.
And they could subvert both of those things.
Yes. And they could
Anyway,
also subvert your passwords too. I mean,
that's true, of course. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is better than passwords because uh, it won't require you to go to the effort of learning how to use a password manager, and it'll give you a similar level of security, I think.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll see how it goes. And I guess that's it for this one. And we'll have another one on Tuesday.